This Council resumes the second reading debate on the Dutiable Commodities Amendment Bill 2026. Members who wish to speak, please press the Request to Speak button. Mr. Andrew Yang. Thank you. President, I speak in support of the Dutiable Commodities Amendment Bill 2026. Now, I've always shown concern about the competitiveness of the shipping industry in Hong Kong. Green shipping is the global trend. There will be a greater demand for green methanol for fuel bunkering in the future. Last year, the government published an action plan, and in the beginning of this year, on 2 occasions, we completed green fuel bunkering. And this is the second step of the 2-step approach in completing the legislative framework, so that through a pragmatic manner we can introduce exemption of duty on MA, and that we can further promote the business of green methanol bunkering operations. Now, I fully acknowledge this approach. In the bill, it provides new specific offences. There are also the other aspect, that is new provisions relating to presumption of fact. All these seek to respond to the sector's demand, and it's a good balance between supporting the industry's development and law enforcement. I think that this bill provides a very strong rule of law foundation for Hong Kong to implement green methanol bunkering in the future. I hope that this can help us keep our position in the global shipping industry. I so submit. Mr. Chan Siu-Hong. I speak in support of the Dutiable Commodities Amendment Bill 2026, or the Amendment Bill. In light of the IMO's zero emission targets, the global shipping industry is now moving towards adopting green fuel. Green methanol is comparing to other forms of fuel emitting less carbon, so it's adopted as the new energy source. The SAR government passed legislative amendments for MA to be used in fuel tanks of outgoing vessels. It provides exemption of duty for Hong Kong to be the green methanol bunkering center. Now, for this legislative amendment, it seeks to provide for specific offences to tackle the abuse of duty-exempt, non-denatured MAs. In light of the increase in demand for green methanol bunkering and more businesses and more vessels coming to Hong Kong, there is a need to amend the law. So I agree with the government that the law should be amended to prevent abuse, because in the past the law was enacted to deter adulterated alcohol from poisoning the population. To avoid a repeat of history, we need to put in place anti-abuse measures on top of providing exemption of duty for the use of MA as fuel. Now, I'm concerned about the operability of the law when it comes to actual implementation. There are provisions that have drawn the concern of the sector, because it provides that the MA should be used as fuel in outbound vessels only. But the way it is drafted is that there might be very complex situations involving the the transportation or the storage of MA. And if the definition is too narrow in scope, there'd be a concern that, for example, if you store or transport MA before it's put in the fuel tank of an outgoing vessel, you might be breaching the law. The administration has emphasized that the legislative amendment targets vessels that use MA as fuel. And in this process, there is no need to use any onshore facilities. The bunkering process can be completed offshore altogether. Now, I'm happy to learn from the administration that there's an undertaking that once we set up storage facilities onshore, the administration will assess the situation more carefully. The other concern is that when it comes to this customs and excise department's law enforcement action, duty paid or non-duty paid MA may not be differentiated by naked eye. At the panel meeting, I asked how the CNE department could ascertain that the MA contained in the barrel is indeed duty paid as explained on the label, because there may be a loophole. And in this legislative amendment, it will introduce a presumption of facts. I think that the government should explain this arrangement very clearly to practitioners or the public to avoid anyone being inadvertently caught by the law. According to the administration, at an unlicensed premises or premises without permit, any illegal sale of MA or refill of MA would constitute an offense, and it's for the defendant to provide proof based on the presumption of facts. I think this is a very robust foundation for law enforcement. This forms the cornerstone for making Hong Kong a greenfield bunkering center. So I hope that the government will strike a proper balance between regulation and development. I so submit.
Mr. Dennis Lang, Deputy President, I speak in support of the Dutiable Commodities Amendment Bill 2026. Under the global trend of green shipping, the international maritime industry has started switching to low or even zero-emission green maritime fuels. The government in November 2024 announced and propagated the Action Plan on Green Maritime Fuel Bunkering, setting out a multi-fuel strategy to gradually enable the provision of different green maritime fuels at Hong Kong Port. It's been 1.5 years since the promulgation of the action plan. The government have achieved some actual result. We are now offering liquefied LNG and biodiesel fuel bunkering. In 2025, we have conducted 126 green fuel bunkering operations. In the first 5 months of this year, the bunkering volume amount to some 60,000 tons. For methanol bunkering, in March, in Anchorage and the Kwai Chung Container Terminal, we have conducted our first green MA bunkering. We are one of the few ports that can offer MA bunkering at Anchorage and Container Terminal. I believe that while in international cruisers, most of them use MA, and in the future, the number will increase. I think that the Hong Kong not need to seize these opportunities in promoting mixed or MA bunkering service so that we can promote our economy, we can give full play to our advantage. This amendment will improve our laws and consolidate our status as a greenfield bunkering port. According to the Dutiable Commodities Ordinance, MA is a dutiable commodity. Since 1957, we introduced a duty for MA to deter the production of adulterated alcohol and prevent MA poisoning. But because of the high duty, the operation of bunkering of MA has been increased, and this undermines our competitiveness. The natured MA may be exempted from duty, but the denaturing process will incur extra costs for supplier and the sector. And this is not an international practice, so LegCo supports the amendment to the DCO Dutiable Commodities Ordinance so that MA used for fuel and outbound vessels will be exempted from duty. This is how we remove barriers for MA bunkering. And this is the second step in the legislative approach. After the duty exemption regime establishment, we are going to improve our monitoring over MA. At the same time, we need to guard against criminals engaging in import-export management of dutiable commodities. 3 arrangements have been introduced. First, we are going to specify offenses for the import and use of MA for non-bunkering purpose. Anyone who sell or transfer to non-outbound vessels, they will be subject to penalty. If the MA is transferred to fuel bank of a non-outbound vessel, then they will be subject to penalty as well. Also, there is a requirement of delivering a warning notice to a receiver of duty-exempt MA for use as fuel in specified outbound vessels. This measure is to remind users that MA should only be used for fuel as outbound vessel only. Third, there will be a presumption of facts. Under the presumption of facts proposal, non-denatured MA with an alcohol strength exceeding 30% by volume is presumed dutiable. President, the trend of green shipping is undeniable. Hong Kong must seize opportunities and turn ourselves into a green ship bunkering center. Through improving our legal framework, we can prevent MA from being abused. I think that we need to strike a balance between industry development and improving our regulation. Hopefully, after passage of the bill, we can further consolidate our status as an international shipping center. Deputy President, I so submit. Mr. Johnny Ng, President. The purpose of the Dutiable Commodities Amendment Bill 2026 is to implement the measures set out in the Action Plan on Green Maritime Fuel Bunkering. We are going to exempt duty for MA used for outbound vessels. As the international cruise and shipping industries is using low or even zero-emission green maritime fuels, the government promulgated the Action Plan on Green Maritime Fuel Bunkering. It sets out the duty exemption regime for MA. This diversified the green bunkering fuel that we offer at our ports. This will enhance our competitiveness. The amendment is to prevent abuse of the duty-exempt MA. Hong Kong as a major port, I think that we need to improve our infrastructures and facilities. By exempting duty for MA for bunkering purpose, we can lower the cost of the sector. I support the bill, but I hope that the government will pay attention to the following 2 points. We need to strike a balance between combating illegal use of the regime and making it more convenient for the business sector. There are specified or specific offenses targeting undue use of MA. I think that the government, when they implement the guidelines, need to make sure that there is digitalization of declarations, and also we need to monitor the where the fuel is going to reduce compliance cost of the sector. Second, we need to improve the construction of our local ecosystem of green fuel in Hong Kong. We need to attract more outgoing vessels to call Hong Kong ports, and I think that we need to further work together with other ports in the Greater Bay Area to establish a green fuel supply chain. We should also encourage local R&D institutions participate in the research and development of low-carbon fuels. Green transformation is a challenge and it also poses important opportunities for our high-quality development. I hope that the government will implement the other measures in the action plan as soon as possible. Thank you.
Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you, Deputy President. I speak in support of the Dutiable Commodities Amendment Bill 2026. Deputy President, let me first say I thank the government for promulgating earlier on the action plan on green maritime fuel bunkering, and the amendment bill targets specifically methyl alcohol, and this corresponds to the measures in the action plan on green maritime fuel bunkering. Methanol is very important because it is our country's initiative to really reduce emissions in shipping. The country has been actively promoting the use of methanol bunkering. And we note that different shipping companies are asking which green maritime fuel we would adopt. And with the action plan on green maritime fuel bunkering, it has been made clear to the shipping industry that green methanol is an important way forward. I thank the administration for listening to industry feedback on the specific amendments. For each metric ton, methyl alcohol can be charged with $35,000 of taxes. But in future, with methyl alcohol being used for fuel bunkering, it can generate significant economic gains. And in fact, in my constituency in Tuen Mun, in future, we may have some methanol bunkering and warehousing facilities. I hope that in future we can have other ancillary facilities in the area. There are also offenses in the amendments targeting the mishandling of duty-exempt methyl alcohol. As other members said, with the methyl alcohol denatured or processed, it cannot be used for consumption as liquor. To prevent basically abuse of the duty exemption arrangements, we are specifying the duty exempt methyl alcohol is to be used for fuel bunkering of vessels. And it is important in enforcement that we can prove the methyl alcohol is dutiable goods. We, in the amendments, have a presumption of fact. I believe it is important that we have a clear understanding of that in enforcement. People have made similar observations in the discussions, so there are some concerns, but then I overall support the amendments in the bill because with the tax concessions, we can really turn Hong Kong into a green methanol bunkering center. It will bring about significant contributions to the economy. Thank you. Mr. Alan Chen. Thank you. Deputy President, I would like to raise 2 points here. The first is on demand for methanol fuel. We don't have a large fleet in the world that needs methanol bunkering. We only have 0.3% of the fleets make use of methanol bunkering. But with the new orders of vessels, we have 330 to 350 of such vessels in production. It is 11 to 12% of the ships that are being made. We are seeing rapid growth of methanol bunkering vessels. In 2027 or 28, we should see the peak. Hong Kong needs to prepare in advance for such demand. As an international shipping hub, the industry also has 500,000 workers. It is very important to support their employment, which is why I support the amendments in the bill. I think we should really consider whether there's such need to charge duties on methyl alcohol. I hope that the administration can consider exempting duties for methyl alcohol because every year we only have 2 million odd in revenue. It's $11 per liter. And every year we only have 230,000 liters, so resulting in 2 odd million in tax revenue. Now, there is a history behind charging of duties because there was much adulterated liquor made from non-denatured methyl alcohol. So I think we no longer have that. I hope that we can streamline relevant procedures and reduce administrative costs. That's it from me. Does any other member wish to speak? If not, I now call upon the Secretary for Transport and Logistics to reply, then the debate will come to a close. Secretary. Deputy President, I move that the second reading of the Dutiable Commodities Amendment Bill 2026 be resumed. First of all, I would like to thank members for their support for the bill, which has enabled the second reading debate on the bill to resume today. I would also like to thank all members who have spoken just now for their views on the bill, including those supporting our two-step approach, as well as the specific operations of enforcement, as well as our future strategy, what it should be. We are trying to align with the international trend of green transformation. The International Maritime Organization has set a target to achieve net zero greenhouse gas emissions from international shipping around 2050, and the switch to green maritime fuels is globally recognized as the most effective measure for reducing emissions. Consequently, in November 2024, the government published the Action Plan on Green Maritime Fuel Bunkering with the aim of developing Hong Kong into a leading regional hub for the bunkering and trading of green maritime fuels. In particular, we propose a multi-fuel strategy to develop biodiesel, LNG, green methanol, green ammonia, and hydrogen bunkering. Of these 5 types of green maritime fuels, only methanol is classified as a dutiable commodity. To promote the development of methanol bunkering in Hong Kong and provide a clear and flexible commercial basis for methanol bunkering services, we have introduced the Dutiable Commodities Amendment Regulation 2025 last year, which provides tax exemption for methyl alcohol used for the bunkering of ocean-going vessels. The relevant amendment regulation was passed by the LegCo and came into force in October last year. Our strategy is to promulgate the amendment regulation last year to provide tax exemptions for methanol used as fuel for outbound vessels so as to benefit green methanol bunkering operations. Thereafter, we have been working on the amendments to the Dutiable Commodities Ordinance, which is what we have here today, the bill, to introduce new offenses for the abuse of duty-exempt methyl alcohol, as well as to provide for a presumption of fact so as to facilitate our approach in future in regulation of duty-exempt methyl alcohol. We believe we can strike a balance between safety and development. There are 3 parts to the legislative proposals in the bill. Firstly, new offenses relating to duty-exempt methyl alcohol are introduced. Any person who fails to use methyl alcohol in accordance with the new exemption provisions or who sells, supplies, or transfers it for use on a vessel other than a specified outbound vessel commits an offense. Furthermore, placing duty-exempt methyl alcohol in a conveyance or other machinery other than the fuel tank of a specified outbound vessel will also constitute an offense. Secondly, we have clear delivery requirements under the bill. All duty-exempt non-denatured methyl alcohol must be accompanied upon delivery by a note stating that it is to be used as fuel for a specified outbound vessel only. It is to remind the recipient of its sole lawful use, reducing the risk of it being transferred for use of unlawful purposes. Thirdly, a new provision on presumption of fact has been introduced. Unless there is evidence to the contrary, non-denatured methyl alcohol with an alcoholic strength of exceeding 30% will be presumed to be a dutiable commodity. This will help enhance law enforcement efficiency. The member also said some concerns have been raised at the Bills Committee meeting. The Customs and Excise Department and we will make sure to follow the requirements in the law closely in enforcement. If we have methyl alcohol on land, it won't be used for bunkering because we only allow for ship-to-ship bunkering. There is no gray area. And in fact, Deputy President, as the 7th largest bunkering hub globally, the 2nd largest in the country and the largest in the Greater Bay Area, Hong Kong enjoys the geographical advantage of being situated adjacent to major fairways and, more importantly, the mainland, a leading global producer of green maritime fuels, and we are the southern gateway of the country. Hong Kong has great potential for the development of green maritime fuel bunkering and trading. In fact, in a short span of just 1.5 years since the publication of the action plan, we had multiple milestones achieved. For example, biodiesel, LNG, and methanol bunkering, we have performed multiple operations. The volume of the bunkering of which exceeded 280,000 tons. And as of May this year, the number of LNG bunkering operations has risen by nearly 1.5 times compared with the same period last year. We have also successfully carried out 3 methanol bunkering operations. We have made quite some achievements, and this is thanks to the staunch support of the Legislative Council, as the Council has successfully scrutinized and passed different bills and policy measures. We are actively trying to facilitate the development of green maritime fuel bunkering in Hong Kong, but we will not stop here. We will continue to introduce new measures to enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness in green maritime fuel bunkering and building of a relevant ecosystem. That would include strengthening cooperation with the mainland to stabilize Hong Kong's supply of green maritime fuels, accelerating the development of green maritime fuel storage facilities, and through legislative amendments, rationalizing the layout of anchorages in the waters of Hong Kong to triple the area where green maritime fuel bunkering operations are permitted. On strengthening cooperation with the mainland, we want to make sure to foster a comprehensive ecosystem and make sure we develop in an all-round manner. How we can cooperate with different GBA mainland cities or other mainland cities in general. We have been actively working with different cities to enhance exchanges as well as talent training in terms of enhancing fuel supply, storage, and transport. We have an edge and we are working complementarily with other cities. We have worked with Dalian to set up a partnership of ports, and the northeastern part of the country as well as Inner Mongolia are also advantageous in these regards, and we have been collaborating with them. Dalian as a port has been active in transshipment, and we can leverage on our advantages as an international shipping hub as well as international financial center to have the delivery and trades done in Hong Kong that can help us develop as a green maritime fuel trading center. Today's bill is one of the key measures to strengthen Hong Kong's development in green methanol bunkering. If supported by members, it will mark another milestone for development of green maritime fuel bunkering, enabling methanol bunkering to continue to flourish under a clear legal framework while ensuring the effective regulation of dutiable commodities in Hong Kong remains unaffected. I implore members to support the bill so that it can be passed and implemented, thereby helping Hong Kong consolidate its status as a center for green maritime fuel bunkering. I so submit. Thank you, President.
I now put the question to you that the Dutiable Commodities Amendment Bill 2026 be read the second time. Please proceed to vote. Members, please press the present button. Will those in favor please raise their hands? Those against, please raise their hands. I think the question is agreed by majority of the members present. I declare the motion passed. Dutiable Commodities Amendment Bill 2026.